So, this group of 20-somethings throws a house party in Detroit, and by the end of the night, 3 of them are dead, shot by someone they'd only met hours before at a gas station. But here's the thing that makes this case absolutely insane. The killer wasn't some random psycho. He was an 18-year-old kid who snapped because he was terrified people would find out he was gay. And the victims? They were all part of the LGBTQ+ community themselves. They welcomed him with open arms, and he repaid that kindness with bullets. Now, the guy's name is Devon Robinson, and Devon is 18 when this happens in 2019, living in East Detroit with his mom. And bro is completely closeted, like, not even his family knows he's gay. He's what they call on the down low, which means he's hooking up with guys but pretending to be straight to everyone in his life. Picture this kid walking around his neighborhood, carrying this massive secret, probably feeling like his whole world would collapse if anyone found out. And honestly, I get why he'd be scared. Coming out is tough, especially when you're young and don't know how your family will react. But then one night in May 2019, everything changes. It's Friday, May 25th, and there's this house party going down on Devonshire Road. The homeowner is 29-year-old Lance Atterbury, and he's got this group of friends over, all young, all proud members of the LGBTQ+ community. We're talking about Paris Cameron, who's 20 and had recently started identifying as a transgender woman. There's Timothy Blanchard, also 20, who everyone calls Miami because of his fun-loving personality. Then you've got 21-year-old Alante Davis, who goes by Tay, and his friends remember him as silly and full of life. These aren't just random party people. These are friends who've created this safe space where they can be themselves, you know? They're dancing, drinking, joking around, just living their truth in a house where nobody has to hide who they are. And that's when Paris decides to make a quick run to the gas station. It's 2:40 in the morning, and Paris and Alante walk into this BP station on the corner of Devonshire and Mac. Paris is dressed in all black with a Nike cap, and she's got this confident energy about her. That's when she spots Devon Robinson in line, grabbing a juice from the cooler. Now here's where it gets interesting. Paris is clearly feeling this guy. She breaks away from Alante and starts flirting with Devon right there by the door. And Devon? He's not running away. He's engaging back, even though his whole life is built around keeping this part of himself hidden. The security cameras catch their whole interaction, and you can see Paris is being super flirtatious. She's putting herself out there, and Devon is responding. Then, as the rest of their friend group comes in, Blair, Timothy, the whole crew, Devon actually pays for his drink and starts to leave. But then Paris calls out to him from outside the store. Can you imagine being Devon in that moment? This beautiful transgender woman is openly interested in him, calling after him in public, and part of him probably wants nothing more than to go with her. But the other part is probably terrified. Well, curiosity wins because Devon turns around and comes back into the store. And that's when Paris makes the invitation that changes everything. As they're all leaving, she leans out of Blair's car window and shouts Devon the address. "We're having a party on Devonshire Road," she tells him. "You should come by." Now, I want you to think about this from Devon's perspective for a second. He's got this massive internal conflict going on. Here's this group of people who are openly living as their authentic selves, inviting him into their world. Part of him probably wants that freedom so badly he can taste it. But then there's the fear, the terror of being exposed, the worry about what his family would think, what his neighbors would say. Devon walks home, and the cameras catch something fascinating. He keeps stopping, turning around like he wants to go back to the group, then changing his mind and continuing on. Back and forth, back and forth. The guy is literally torn between two worlds. Eventually, though, curiosity wins out, and Devon shows up at the party. He arrives maybe 20 to 30 minutes after meeting them at the gas station, and when he gets there, things escalate quickly. Remember, everyone's been drinking. It's 3 a.m., and the mood is relaxed and open. Devon ends up upstairs in the master bedroom, first with Paris, then with others. And here's the thing, this isn't happening in secret. The house is small, people can hear what's going on, and nobody's trying to hide it. In fact, the friends start making jokes about it openly. They call Devon a trade, which is slang for a guy who presents as straight but hooks up with men. They're laughing, saying, "Oh, he's gay," but not in a mean way. To them, it's just playful teasing among friends. But for Devon, every joke probably feels like a knife. Every laugh is confirmation of his worst fear, that people will find out his secret and his whole carefully constructed life will come crashing down. And then something happens that makes it even worse. Remember, investigators later found Devon's DNA on Timothy, not Paris. So whatever went down in that bedroom, it involved multiple people, and Devon probably felt like he'd just given these strangers ammunition to destroy his life. After about an hour at the party, Devon heads home. But the gas station cameras catch him on his way back, and this is where you can really see his mental state deteriorating. He stops at the BP again, but this time he's pacing in front of the door, spitting on the ground, leaning over and gagging like he's about to throw up. The guy is having a complete breakdown. He buys another drink and makes it home by 4:02 a.m. But then, less than an hour later, someone leaves Devon's house at 4:53 a.m. Now, Devon later tells police he was home sleeping with his mom. But the doorbell camera at his house doesn't lie. It catches a dark figure leaving, and then someone returning at 5:01 a.m., just minutes after 3 people were shot to death 2 blocks away. Here's what happened at the house on Devonshire Road. It's early morning, maybe 5 a.m., and there are only 5 people left from the party. Paris, Alante, Timothy, plus Blair Keys and Armin Matthews. They're winding down, joking about the night's events, probably still talking about Devon and what went down upstairs. That's when they hear what sounds like firecrackers going off by the front door. But it's not firecrackers. It's gunshots. A man in a ski mask bursts through the front door with a gun, and he starts firing at everyone indiscriminately. Blair Keys runs and hides in the bathroom, and from there he hears over 20 shots being fired. When the shooting stops, Blair comes out to find his friends wounded and dying in the living room. Alante Davis has been shot twice and he's already gone. Timothy Blanchard has been hit 4 times, and Paris Cameron has been shot 4 times as well. Armin Matthews, who'd been hit in the chest, manages to call 911 while trying to help Timothy down in the basement. But it's too late. Timothy dies despite Armin's efforts to save him. Paris gets rushed to the hospital, but her injuries are too severe. Even though she was kept alive briefly as an organ donor, she eventually succumbs to her wounds. 3 young people dead, 2 survivors traumatized for life. All because an 18-year-old kid couldn't handle the possibility that people might find out he was gay. And here's the part that really gets me. Blair and Armin, the survivors, they can't formally identify the shooter because of the ski mask. But they know who it was. They just spent the evening with Devon. They'd watched him interact with their friends. They knew he had motive. When police track down Devon's address, they find something suspicious. He and his mom, Mollery, have suddenly moved out of their house the day after the murders. Just packed up and left in a hurry, according to a roommate who stayed behind. Police released Devon's photo to the media, asking for the public's help in finding him. It takes over a week, but an anonymous tip leads them to a house on the other side of Detroit, where they arrest Devon Robinson on 3 counts of intentional homicide. Now, when Devon sits down with detectives, they lay all their cards on the table. They tell him they know he did it, they know what happened at the party that triggered him, and they want to understand why. And here's where the interrogation gets really interesting. The detectives are trying to be understanding, telling Devon they get why he might have snapped. They're lying about having his DNA all over the scene, trying to get him to confess. Devon admits he was at the party. He admits he hooked up with people in the bedroom. And he admits something else, he's gay, but he's completely closeted. "Don't nobody know that," he tells them. "Not even my mom. Nobody." The detectives press him about whether he felt threatened with exposure, and Devon's response is heartbreaking and infuriating at the same time. "I ain't mad about it," he says. "It's the thing that everybody finding out. I'm talking about my family, like my mom and my daddy." He wanted to come out to his family on his own terms, before anyone else could tell them. And in his mind, these people at the party were going to ruin that for him. But here's the thing, the detectives really nail him on: the video evidence. They've got cameras everywhere in that neighborhood, and they've pieced together Devon's entire timeline. The same doorbell camera that caught him coming home at 4:02 a.m. also catches someone leaving his house at 4:53 a.m. Then there's a motion-activated camera across from the party house that catches the shooter running away after the attack. The timing lines up perfectly. Someone leaves Devon's house. The shooting happens 4 minutes later, and someone returns to Devon's house at 5:01 a.m. The distance between the houses, a quarter of a mile, about a 4 to 5 minute walk, or a 3-minute run if you're fleeing a crime scene. When confronted with this evidence, Devon claims he was home sleeping the whole time, but the detectives aren't buying it. "We have videos of you going in the house and coming right back out shortly afterwards," they tell him. "Cameras everywhere. We tracked you. We pieced it all together." Devon's response? But he still won't admit to the murders. The case goes to trial in March 2020, and the prosecution paints a clear picture of what happened. Devon Robinson, terrified of being outed, decided the only way to protect his secret was to eliminate the people who knew it. Blair Keys testifies about the party, describing Devon as quiet, emotionless, and cold. He tells the jury he never thought it was a good idea to bring a stranger home from the gas station in the first place. And then Blair drops the bombshell. Even though he initially told police he couldn't identify the shooter because of the mask, at trial he changes his testimony. He tells the jury he got a clear enough look to make an identification. "It looked like the same person that came to our house that night," he says, pointing at Devon. "The person sitting in the courtroom today, the defendant, Mr. Robinson." But the defense pokes holes in this, pointing out that Blair initially said he couldn't see the shooter's face. The cross-examination gets heated. "You didn't see the face of the shooter, did you?" the defense attorney asks. "No," Blair admits. "I'm asking, did you see the face of the shooter? Yes or no?" "No." Armin Matthews testifies about trying to save Timothy in the basement, holding pressure on his wounds while calling 911. It's heartbreaking testimony, but he admits he never saw the shooter either. So the prosecution's case really comes down to the circumstantial evidence. The video timeline, Devon's presence at the party, his motive to keep his sexuality secret. And honestly, that evidence is pretty damning. The defense doesn't present any alternative theory for who might have left Devon's house at the exact time of the shooting. They don't put Devon on the stand to explain where he was during that crucial hour. The prosecution argues that Devon's shame and fear drove him to make an unthinkably stupid decision. He got dressed in black, walked to the party house, killed 3 people and ran back home, thinking he'd solved his problem. "You would have to believe," the prosecutor tells the jury, "that some random person went for an 8-minute walk at the exact time of the shooting. That's not what happened. This is the defendant. The defendant did this." The defense tries to argue that Devon had no reason to kill these people. He wasn't threatened, he wasn't blackmailed. He was a willing participant in whatever happened upstairs. But the jury doesn't buy it. They return guilty verdicts on all counts, 3 counts of first-degree premeditated murder, plus assault charges for the survivors. Devon Robinson gets sentenced to 3 life terms without the possibility of parole, plus additional time for the assault charges and weapons enhancements. 10 counts total. He appeals, arguing there wasn't enough evidence to identify him as the shooter, but the appeal fails. Here's the really tragic part though. In April 2025, the Michigan Supreme Court ruled that mandatory life sentences for people under 21 are too harsh. Young offenders like Devon can now seek resentencing. As of now, Devon is serving his time at the Chippewa Correctional Facility in Michigan, with an earliest possible release date of June 2056. He'll be 55 years old if he ever gets out. But let me ask you something. What do you think about this case? Because I'm torn on how to feel about it. On one hand, Devon was just 18, probably terrified and confused about his sexuality, living in a world where being gay still isn't fully accepted. The panic and shame he felt that night, I can understand how overwhelming that must have been. But then I think about Paris, Timothy, and Alante. These were people who'd created a safe space where people could be themselves. They welcomed Devon with open arms, and his response was to murder them. Paris was just 20 years old, brave enough to live openly as a transgender woman in a world that often doesn't accept people like her. Timothy was known for his kindness and his close relationship with his family. Alante was described as silly and full of life. These weren't people trying to hurt Devon or expose him maliciously. They were just living their lives, and they paid for Devon's internalized homophobia with their lives. And here's what really gets me: Devon's own mother was in a relationship with a woman. His family might have been more accepting than he thought. But we'll never know, because he chose violence instead of vulnerability. The recorded phone calls from jail showed Devon analyzing his case, speculating about the evidence against him. But in all those conversations, he never once proclaims his innocence. He never says, "I didn't do this," or wonders who the real killer might be. Even his mother, frustrated by media reports calling it a hate crime, points out the irony. How can it be anti-gay violence when she herself is a lesbian? But maybe that's exactly what made this so tragic. Devon wasn't just afraid of random homophobia. He was afraid of disappointing his family, of changing how they saw him, of losing their love and acceptance. In the end, 3 young people lost their lives because an 18-year-old boy couldn't imagine a world where being gay was okay. And that's the real tragedy here. Not just the murders, but the toxic shame that made those murders feel necessary to him. What do you think? Drop a comment and let me know. Do you think Devon deserves a chance at resentencing? Or should he serve life for taking 3 lives? And what does this case say about how we as a society handle LGBTQ+ youth who are struggling with their identity? Because cases like this remind us that representation matters, acceptance matters, and sometimes the deadliest weapon isn't a gun, it's shame.